in an instant. That's all it takes to change your life forever. And that's what happened to our family on Veterans Day a year ago. My daughter Lisa and husband Alan lived in Sandpoint with my granddaughter Brittany, who's 5, and Lisa's boy Gavin was 12 and would stay on weekends. We always met at Laclede and did that night so I could take the kids and they could go on a date night and get a free veterans dinner at Sweet Lou's. Alan was proud to have served in the Army. I saluted him and gave him a thank you card with $20 for Lisa's dinner. I got a text from them 2 minutes later thanking me, and Alan said I was the best, and he loved me. I got back home, and not 10 minutes later, the phone rang. It was a stranger that told me that they had been in a rear-ended accident, and Lisa couldn't find her phone but wanted to know if I had the kids. I said, of course, I just met them. The gal told me the cops would go tell Alan's mom, so we started out to go to Bonner General in Sandpoint. The cops had Highway 2 closed down, so we went on Duford. Didn't dawn on me at that moment that it was their wreck that closed the highway. Well, in the waiting room, I figured out they had been in a 3-car wreck 13 minutes after we parted. A 20-year-old was rolling a cigarette and didn't notice that they had stopped to turn and plowed into them going 60 miles an hour, knocking them into the other lane of traffic. All 3 cars were totaled. I kept saying, thank God the kids were not in the back. They would not have survived. When I finally got to see Lisa, I held her hand and thank God she wasn't conscious. She looked horrible. The first thing the cop said to me was, what funeral home would I like them to call? You could tell by the look on my face, I was looking at Lisa and wondering, what the heck? And he said, oh, they didn't tell you Alan didn't survive. They transported Lisa to Sacred Heart, where she had surgery the next morning for a broken eye socket, broken cheekbone, broken collarbone, broken pelvis, and broken back. We waited all day, and when she got settled in her room, we went to say goodbye, and the nurse noticed she'd had a stroke. So back into surgery. She was paralyzed on her whole left side. She spent over 5 weeks there and also at St. Luke's rehab. We went every day but one. It took me several days to tell her about Alan because I was worried about her health. What an amazing community we have. While we were dealing with all that, my friends were the hub of information in town, and they set up a GoFundMe account for Lisa and the kids. There were several fundraisers, and people like my Rotary friends gave us a condo to stay in Spokane so we didn't have to drive, and cash for all the extra expenses. I was so humbled. Several things in that first month touched my heart. Lisa was listening to a voicemail from Alan, and Brittany turned around and said, is there phones in heaven? We also had our family Thanksgiving dinner in the waiting room on Lisa's floor so she could be included. While delivering the newspapers, the Beacon that I work for and own, to the Mangy Moose, a big table of gentlemen called me over, and they happened to be the local pastors of all the churches, and they meet once a week, and they prayed for our family. I mean, the timing of that was just amazing, that God would have me in the right moment, because I needed that at that point. I had to deal with the funeral home and everything with Alan since his mom had lost her husband that year too. They gave me back the $20 I had given him and his wedding ring. The first time I really let loose was driving alone to their apartment that first week when I went to get some things and check things out. I looked around and thought, they left thinking they were coming back and they never did. Her apartment neighbors pitched in and paid the rent for 2 months so we didn't have to worry about moving her out and could concentrate on her. And we had to do some remodeling on our house to make it accessible for Lisa and the kids. But Lisa did get home by Christmas. We had Alan service the end of January, 2 months after the accident. The veterans played taps and gave Lisa and his mom a flag. It was a nice tribute. It was a very hard year of the different stages of grief, doctor's appointments and such. And then the pandemic hit in March. It's like, are you kidding me? People kept telling me, you're so strong and God doesn't give you more than you can handle. And I said, I am so far beyond that, but what can I do? I'm the mom and the grandma. I don't really have any great words of wisdom or answers to help ease the pain of grief. I've always followed my mom's advice of treating others like you want to be treated. And I know there's always someone better off and someone worse off than you. You have to stay positive and you have to be grateful. And I do focus on volunteering because it makes me feel good to help others. We finally got the Cross Memorial up at the accident site, and it's a great tribute to Alan, whom I miss every day. We also set up an Alan Roth Memorial Scholarship at Preacher Vermont High School, and anyone going into the service is eligible to apply for it. He would have liked that. Lisa regained everything but the use of her left hand. We tried to come up with some positive suggestions for the young man on trial for the accident. We did not want him to go to jail as a felony for 15 years. He has a family too. So I suggested, and Alan's mom and Lisa agreed, that community service, helping veterans, talking to young people about the dangers of a car, and you're not invincible, because he has to live with this all his life. And instead of court fees, maybe a scholarship fund for Brittany, since she doesn't have a dad to do that. And so the prosecutor's presenting that in May. And that's a year and a half after the accident. But to update everyone, Lisa is now with her high school sweetheart. And together they have 5 children and one on the way. Yes, the Brady Bunch. And they live close enough where we can help out and where I have more grandkids to love. I remember in the beginning praying for God to watch over the family and praying for Lisa's health and always asking for help from God. Now when I pray, it's with gratitude. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. It's hard to see at first, but with prayer, family, and friends, and God's guidance, it is possible. Love you, Alan.